We'll start as we normally do with our prayer request list. Need to, of course, remember our students and their staff. Everybody's back to school, or at least back to school every other day with their students. We need to remember all the Smith County residents affected by COVID. Need to remember Tricia Oliver, her mother passed away. Of course, Danny Clare is here recovering from surgery. Karen Alvis is out sick. Remember her. Howard Ballard, this is Rachel Kelly's stepdad, has cancer. Need to remember him. Miss Faye Crawford's a teacher at GES, mother-in-law and mother have both been sick. Of course, we continue to remember Josh Dillard and Mr. Lewis's mother. Are there any others that we need to add to this prayer request list? If not, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we're always thankful for every day that you give us, for the health you've given us this day. We know we've mentioned many who don't have that health. We want to continue to pray for those. We want to continue to pray for those that lost loved ones in this community. That list always grows, and many of us are affected by that at times in our lives. We know we will be, and we just want to pray comfort for those. We want to pray for the school system. With everything going on with COVID, we want to pray that you'll keep our staff and our children safe and healthy, and just pray, Father, that there'll be something that you'll do that'll help wipe this out and let us get back to our normal days. We just want to pray that through this meeting you'll help us to make good decisions for the school system as always. We want to pray for the new board as they come on, new board members, that you'll help them and help them to be wise in their decision making. And pray that the new board will continue to build on what the old boards have done, because that's the way that we should operate. We just want to thank you, Father, for your Son, and it's his name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we will start with some recognitions tonight. This will be our outgoing board members. Mr. Smith.
Well, we're gaining 2, and we're losing 2. I didn't realize till today, Brian, I thought you came on a term quicker than Robin, but it was before my time. But I want to say from my part of it, you two have been 2 fantastic, not only 2 good friends, but you've been 2 fantastic board members. And I don't want in any manner to take anything away from our new members coming in, but you've got big shoes to fill, because the diversity of these 2, I think was the word Gina used today, is a great word, because you brought in different views that maybe some of us didn't see to start with, but you done a fantastic job. There's not, I always was very proud of the fact when I would tell people, well, here we had a very fortunate to have an engineer and Brian and an attorney and Robin, so it only gave us not only different viewpoints from different perspectives of life, but also from the legal and the business world. So I can tell you as a friend and what you brought, I think you made decisions based on what you thought was best for the children, and that's very important to me, and I want to say thank you, and not only from the board and for the community, for myself. I'm going to miss you, and I love you all, and I appreciate what you've done. So thank you, and I think you deserve an applause. And I'm going to call you up. You want to take your picture, Sheena? How you going to do?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay. Brian, this is a little token for your 8 years of service.
Get down over this wires up here.
Smith.
Let me get more than one.
Thank you, Barry.
Miss Robin.
Did you get one of them? Okay. I'll let you go first. I'm gonna get 2 or 3, so just hold on. I'm not too close, I promise. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to say something real quick. It's kind of going to sound like I'm winning an award, but it's not. But I want to be thankful. It was an honor to be able to serve. I want to thank District 7 for having the confidence to vote me in. For this board and past boards had the confidence to vote me as chair. I appreciate it. And for this school system, I served with Mr. Smith for 6 years, Mr. Lewis for 2. Of course, the central office staff is amazing here. All your administrators, teachers, all the staff in the school system, I mean from ITS, bus garage, maintenance, cafeteria, I mean it goes through the whole system. If people at home, if you're not involved with the school system like we have been in the last 8 years, you don't realize what they do for your children. And I want to say thank you to them. And again, thank y'all for allowing me this honor. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something too, but I'm gonna go where that I can at least be, not that it's important for me to be seen, but I do have something to say to the public as well. I'm with Brian. We both served 8 years together. We've been together our whole lives. Brian and I grew up together. Our parents are best of friends, and so it's been an honor to serve with you, and the majority of it as our chair. So, and at times I was vice chair. So that's been an honor to serve with you. To all of the board members that I've served with that are here today or previous, I appreciate you very much. I know we don't always agree, and that's okay. If we're all thinking alike, nothing's getting done, in my opinion. I think diversity is important on the board. I think different perspectives are important, and we've done that. And more importantly, we've done that and remained friends. And I think a lot of times the general public believes that we leave angry or upset or mad at one another based on if we vote different about a certain issue. And you all know, and I know, that that's not the case. You know, we do what we think is best, and we leave it at the board table when we leave. And for that, I'm thankful. There's never been a time that, I ever felt that any of you did anything or voted any other way than what you absolutely believe to be best. And I've done the same. So, I just want to share that with you all. The responsibilities of this job is great. It's a thankless job. I get, a lot of people have said that to me about it being a thankless job. It is, but I've enjoyed my 8 years on the board. I chose not to seek re-election simply because my youngest is now going to be a freshman in college, and I think it's important to, one, keep a fresh board, a new board, with new ideas, and it's not the same old school all the time. I think the board has seen tremendous growth in the last 8 years, and for that I'm thankful. We're taking advantage of technology in ways that we didn't before, and I think that that's only going to continue. As Brian said, the staff and administration at all of our schools, it's just unreal, the things that go on behind the school doors, after hours, before hours, during the weekends, all the times that people take to make sure that our kids are taken care of. And I don't think the general public realizes that, and anybody who thinks teachers work 8 to 3 and go home don't know anything about being a teacher. Also, for most of my time on the board, I've been the only female. I did serve, I think, 4 years with Tina Gantine, which was a complete joy, and I've missed Tina being on the board. As much as I love you, Scotty Lewis, Tina Gantine was a little prettier to look at than you sitting to my left. So, and also today, and you all may not know this, but today is the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. Who knows what the 19th Amendment is? Jamie Weekler, you cannot talk. What is it?
Women's right to vote.
Today is the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote. And that's not lost on me as I stand here Not only do I have the right to vote, but to be elected by my community to serve is something that I very much appreciate and appreciate the opportunity for. To those folks that have said mean and ugly and hateful things, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever, just know that I forgive you. I don't care. It's not bothered me in the least. I do hate that a lot of the things that have been said have hurt my family, but they've not hurt me. And, and I think the thing that bothers me the most about that is when you look at the election this time, nobody had an opponent. So you're all willing to talk, you're all willing to say whatever you want to say on the keyboard, but not a single one of you are willing to step up and lead. So for that, I challenge you, if you're going to challenge us as board members and say things about us, then step up and do something. Don't just simply sit behind a keyboard and say things that you really don't know what you're talking about. I've seen allegations that we've been paid off. I've seen allegations that we're doing things for selfish reasons or personal gains. There's not a person in this room that has ever done that. And the fact that we're paid off is laughable. We earn $100 a month. Mine is $92 and some penny after some taxes. And there's many months I would have gladly given that back not to have this responsibility. But anyway, to Mark Jones, you're my successor. I have all the confidence in the world that you are going to serve with as much integrity as any board member ever will. And I'm here for you. I'm here for the defeated and Pleasant Shade communities in District 1 in any way that I can. So I do want to leave you with this. Of course, it's a basketball quote from John Wooden. Success is never final, failure is never fatal, and it is the courage that counts. And that's what this job is about. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Robin. All right, new board members. Mr. Manning and Mr. Apple, do they have to be sworn in again?
No, sir.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
I asked her,
No.
so.
Okay.
We're late.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Glover, you do know you have to be sworn in before the next meeting, which will be September 15th. And you can contact Ms. Stacy Bush. You do that at the county mayor's office. You can either do it together, you can do it separate, however you can work that out in y'all's schedule. And again, the next meeting will be the 15th, September 15th at 5 p.m. here. Of course, you two know that. And that'll be your first meeting the first year, which you both have been on the county commission. It won't be as big a whirlwind. A lot of times you come on new, that first year, you're just trying to keep up with what's going on, but you two have got a little experience in that, probably won't be near as much of a whirlwind. We do appreciate y'all stepping up, and we know you'll do a good job. All right, let's move on. Our consent items. We have a motion on our consent items.
I'll move.
Mr. Apple, I'm gonna have to look around. Everybody's sitting in a different place on it. We have a second.
Second.
Mr. McKay. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next we have our superintendent actions. Hope you had a chance to look at those. And we'll move.
You want to explain what they are?
Yes, I'm sorry. I've got so used to just flying through those. For the new members, superintendent actions, that is actions that the superintendent will take through the month. And you'll have a list of these in your board packet. If you have any questions about them, you can always ask Mr. Smith. Great about explaining anything. And if you have any questions about anything, he's great about explaining any question you may have before a board meeting. But especially these superintendent actions, you can ask him about those. We usually that's something he's done between the meetings that, he has the authority to do. New business A, policy amendment 6.304, student discrimination, harassment, bullying, cyberbullying, and intimidation. This is the second and final reading. Do we have a motion on new business A?
So moved.
So moved.
Mr. Manning, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Lewis, any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes. New business B. This is a new policy 6.3041, Title IX and sexual harassment. Do we have a motion on new business B? This is also a second final reading.
So moved.
Ms. Moore, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shoulders, any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. New business C, policy amendment 4.205, enrollment in college level courses. This is also a second and final reading. Do we have do we have a motion on new business C?
So moved.
Mr. Shoulders, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Apple, any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. New business D. This is policy amendment 6.319, alternative education. This is a second final reading. Do we have a motion on new business D? Mr. Taylor, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Lewis, any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. New business E, policy amendment 6.409, reporting child abuse. This is also a second final reading. Do we have a motion on new business E?
So moved.
Mr. Manning, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. McCallum, any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. New business F. This is the approval of school fees, GES and SCHS. Do we have a motion on new business F?
So moved.
Mr. Shoulders, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Apple? I think Mr. Smith, you're going to explain.
Mr. Caleb had asked me to, each school has a set amount of money that's from the federal government to set aside for free and reduced children. I can assure you, I want to make sure you understand, it like, and Mr. Caleb, I did tell you wrong about something. This particular one does have cap and gowns in it, okay? But like I talked to one teacher, for example, at another school, their fee for something coming up was a math work. Most of your workbooks now are included in the sets, but like theirs was $5, okay? So there's certain amounts for roughly 70% of our children are free and reduced in the county, so their fee is waived. You know, we don't draw attention to that. But anybody, most of them, like several teachers I talked to between this meeting and last, they have people that want to give more than the $5. They want to give it to the classroom so that they got extra pencils, that their crayon boxes all match the same. So this is not something that's mandated. In other words, if I refuse to pay my $40, somebody's going to figure out a way for these kids to get it. And there's not attention drawn to this. There's not repercussions if you don't pay it. But like I said, approximately 70% of it's going to be paid. Those individual students will be paid anyway through the federal government. So, does that answer?
Will that be for the full school year even? That's for the full school year, right?
Each school year, yeah, they'll get, you know, like, they'll have ongoing things up to a certain percent of dollars, and then they're not going to supersede that anyway. If they did, it'd be a project, or the school would kick in and pick it up at that point.
Any other discussion or question? If not, this involves money. We'll roll call, and I will roll call these in order. Mr. Manning?
Yes.
Mr. Shoulders?
Yes.
Mr. McCallum?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Apple?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion passes. New business G, special education transportation contract, school year 2021. Do we have a motion on new business G?
So moved.
Mr. Lewis, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Taylor, any discussion? If not, we'll roll call. Mr. Manning?
Yes.
Mr. Shoulders?
Yes.
Mr. McCaleb?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Apple?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion passes. New business H, grant contract between the State of Tennessee Human Services and Smith County Schools. Do we have a motion on new business H?
So moved.
Mr. Manning, do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Moore, any discussion? If not, we'll roll call. Mr. Manning?
Yes.
Mr. Shoulders?
Yes.
Mr. McCaleb?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Apple?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion passes. Move on to new business I. I can get to. This is a bid approval for gasoline. Do we have a motion on new business I?
So moved.
Mr. Shoulders, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Apple, any discussion? Not, we'll roll call. Mr. Manning?
Yes.
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 Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion passes. New business J. This is the election of the board chair and vice chair for the 2021 school year. And before we ask for nominations, I'm just going to say that I don't think it's my place to nominate anybody, so don't anybody think I'm just being quiet up here. Do we have a nomination for board chair?
Mr. Chairman, if you would entertain me a motion, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Lewis.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate board member Rick Shoulders as the upcoming board chair. He has been serving as the vice chair and has done an exceptional job at that. Also has a great deal of experience having served on the board in previous years, and of course, I think we all have great confidence in him, so I'd like to make the motion to elect him as board chair, sir.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Apple? Do we have any other nominations? If not, all those in favor of Mr. Shoulders, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Can I oppose to that?
Yeah, well, I meant that, I should have asked you first. Do you accept the nomination? It sounds like you already voted in on if you have a choice. You okay with it?
Yeah.
Mr. Shoulders accepts. Should ask him first. But we have all ayes. Mr. Shoulders will be the board chair for 2021. Now, let's move on to vice chair. Do we have a,
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Mr. Lewis as the vice chairman for this upcoming year.
Mr. Lewis? Do we have a second?
Second.
Brian, I didn't hear you.
Ms. Moore? He nominated Mr. Lewis as vice chair, Mr. Lewis as vice chair, and Ms. Moore seconded. Do we have any other nominations for vice chair? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Lewis will be your vice chair for the 2021 school year. Congratulations to both of you,
Thank you.
and good luck.
Thank you for that as well.
All right, let's move on to a discussion A. These are student enrollment numbers in August 2020. I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith.
We're gonna give you an update on, overall, we're pretty close to what we ran for the last 4 or 5 years. We're down just a few more like we were year before last, 50 to 80 students, but we're getting more students back in every day. We still got some. It's, we think where their virtual numbers are off just a little bit, and then we did lose a few to homeschool, but we suspect a lot of those we hope will be back, you know, when this thing's over. We know the county's growing as a whole, so we know that the overall numbers should be growing. We did get approximately, I think Gina said 367 was the last number I saw on virtual. It went straight virtual. We don't have our homeschool numbers yet. Hope to have them in the next month or so. But overall, we're about where we've been at, roughly for an average the last, I guess, 3 to 5 years. Up a little bit what we was over that period of time, but about like we were, so. Anybody got any questions on the virtual, anything while we're on the subject? We got a
Mr.
growth.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I don't have a question, but I do want to say to Director Smith, I have to commend you, sir. Y'all have struggled with so much getting this school year going. You and the staff and all of our employees, teachers, and everybody have just struggled so much to get this going. And I'm proud to hear those numbers. And I just want to commend you again for just doing such a good job of organizing everything, and just say again how much I appreciate all of our staff and employees. They've just done a remarkable job.
Well, thank you, Mr. Lewis, and Brian hit on something there earlier, Mr. Smith. We've got people don't need to take for granted the staff that we have, not because of me. We've got fantastic people. Our staff worked, we got her, it was going to cost us approximately, we thought $600,000 range to offer the virtual, and through a lot of that, we've got that way down. We're still hoping to get some grants and stuff, but we utilized every teacher, went through every student pretty much one-on-one, and we had some people that actually volunteered for the virtual that I think done a lot of it out of the goodness of their heart, because not only did, some of them it helped, but we got some that's got 84 students, I think, one particular situation, and in other counties that would have been 4 or 5 or 6 teachers, and they're willing to do that for the system, and they love the system as a whole, and we've got some fantastic teachers that's volunteered to do this. We didn't take teachers, we didn't have nothing else to do. We took some of the best teachers in the county that are serving in these roles, and hopefully we're, like I said, in 2 weeks, if we're patient, this is not a full, right now what we're doing with her, we're doing the blended schedule again. Everybody, I made fun of the day, everybody in the state's copying us now again, and everybody's went blended, and I'm happy to see that, because it shows that maybe we did the right thing to start with on the way we brought kids and their students back. I have had a lot of teachers and principals ask if we would consider, I think I've had this discussion with you, Brian, this is going to bring a new business model to everything, saving money, and but one good thing, the teachers and the principals really like the way we staggered these students back. They say they really made a better connection with the kids and the students and the families. They're talking more to families, they're getting more involvement, they're getting to know their students better, they're getting them logged in quicker on the computers, and that was our whole goal. Regardless of how we open, we're pretty much going to open the same way the first 3 weeks anyway. So I appreciate the board giving us the opportunity to be very flexible, and I think that it's going to pay off regardless. So we're hoping and praying we can get back in here in a week or two and be wide open, and we're spending a lot of time, we're not going to tell you we're not, on the COVID situation, making sure that we've got it covered. But one of the great things, when our grant, we had the opportunity to write our grant, $547,000, and we got money for the county for free. One thing we're very fortunate on, they allowed us to hire a COVID position at each school, and we kind of throwed that in there. No one around us done that, and they approved it. And so this morning, early when I was going through all the absentees we had, these principals have done a fantastic job of utilizing that COVID position along with the full-time sub that you allowed us to do a few years ago. So it's not really cost us anything outside at this point in the realm of our budgets, which has been fantastic. Actually, with the COVID position, we gained money, so to speak. So we really got off to a good start with all the adversity, and that all starts with the board having enough faith and letting letting the central office staff and the principals and the teachers do what they're doing. And like Robin said earlier, anybody thinks that teaching right now is I've been through a lot in my lifetime, but this has been the worst, absolute, most trying, stressful year we've ever had. And it's going to be a long year, and we need to all stick together as a team, and with the storm, we'll be fine.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Y'all have done an exceptional job. Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll move on to discussion B. This was our Smith County School Structure for Learning. Ms. Moore had requested this to be placed on the agenda. Ms. Moore, did you?
I did. Right now, and I really did this more as a benefit, hopefully to you, Director Smith, and also for our parents and teachers to have some idea of where we are. Right now, the way that I understand it, other than the board vote that we had a couple of weeks ago, there's really no radar or target or guidance for Mr. Smith in the school system outside of what he would normally do for sickness or a snow day or something like that. I mean, that's in his discretion, as when to close schools or open schools or whatever the case may be. And this Smith County District Structure for Learning was you have trouble hearing me, Barry? Placed on the agenda back in, or not on the agenda, but on the website back in May or June. And so I feel like that the board needs to look at this and consider adopting this as policy. So that gives some guidance to Mr. Smith and some level of expectation for our parents, our teachers, and our staff based on what the community numbers are. And the community spread, whether it's low, moderate, or high. I think that's important, and the board may disagree, but I think Mr. Smith may relish some guidance there and knowing, what to do. So you can take it for what it is, but that was my intention when I placed this on the board, on the agenda, and then also it's already out there for the public to see, but it's not board policy. So I feel like if we're putting that out there and people are relying on that information, that it needs to be in the form of policy.
Well, I kind of disagree with that. I don't know whether this should be policy or not. This is just our way of starting school back this year. Will this be the same way next year? No, it could be different. Then we would have to amend the policy if this was policy.
Well, no, I don't.
Is it more procedure than policy?
You
Is
could
that-
attach it as a procedure to policy.
Are you saying, Robin, like when it set in marks where it got, where we kind of know what like Gina had given me, is this what another county was using? They'd use like a less than, low was considered less than 0.5%, moderate 0.5 to 1, and then high was 1%. But it didn't say they were going to shut down. It just said that they were going to, that's where they considered their levels to be.
Right,
So-
and I just feel like that everybody needs some idea of what the school system intends to do if our numbers return to normal in 2 weeks, or if they, triple in 2 weeks. I feel like, and I know we're swimming in the dark to some degree because we're, it's a new day every day and there's always new information coming out. But, I don't know, I just feel like that there needs to be something out there. We're putting this information out there for our parents and our staff anyway. And I just feel like that it needs to be, whether it's policy or whether it's procedure or whatever, and maybe Mr. Winkler has a comment on his preference as to whether it's policy or procedure, but there needs to be some guidance, or the board just simply needs to relinquish that responsibility to you as director. That's my opinion.
Well, I think let me say this, I think it's very important that the board understands, I'd say, Tricia, would you say a half of her days working on the COVID incidents would be? More than that. And I'm talking about this Tricia and I. And we took a hands-on approach because it's not consistent. I mean, like, Brian catches it today, it's much different if he catches it on Friday, because we got a 48-hour window, Jamie and I have talked and been very frustrated, just in the fact that we've had a moving target from 14 days to 10 days to now you're hearing 7 and then 6 foot and then 3 foot and we can't get a, so it's so hard to figure out, like, you know, there's situations where one person is, and I call it hot, or they test positive, that we could shut a school down because they happen to be a football coach and assistant principal and, you know, and like many of our people do, 3 or 4 jobs, they're gonna shut a school down. I mean, have to. One thing Jamie and I taught Yersty that again, getting better business models, it's much easier now. In the past, we would have had to shut down at least a whole side or probably the whole system. But now with the technology and as much training as we've already got out there, we could shut down just a New Milton or a Forks River, you know, but still back to what you're saying, we need some guidance because you could shut down tomorrow and shut down a certain school. And I guess we need to figure out a way to make sure the board's very prepared for that, the phone calls and stuff, and what the criteria, I guess, it would take to shut that down. But it would almost be a case by case.
Well, like you said, it's a moving target, and they're
Every
telling you
day.
a different, they're telling you
And
a
I
different, that's kind of what scares me about putting a number on it. Tomorrow, that number,
Oh, I'm
consider.
not interested in putting a number on it. I'm just interested in some guidance for, you know, for the system as a whole, as to at what point, you know, and that can definitely be a fluid situation based on what's going on within the community, but.
And I've heard, and this is total hearsay at this point, I shouldn't have trying to watch TV for a while in here, but I've heard that maybe the governor is going to make teachers become crucial or essential employees, and they're going to have to work. In other words, if their test not exhibiting symptoms, they're going to have to be there. If that's the case, that's going to be another total bear in itself. I mean, so.
I think if the board does anything, I would much prefer that it be a procedure, because as Mr. Manning says, it's got to be very flexible, because this policy would have to be rescinded next year. You would have to ignore it, but procedures are a little bit more flexible in what you do and able to change. But the Department of Health has put out some guidance that is somewhat similar to that. That's what Mr. Smith calls what we look to, but it sometimes changes and you hear different things as well. And then some employers are doing different things than what the Department of Health says. Every employer is probably a little different on a test to come back and things of that nature. So certainly nothing wrong with some sort of guidance if it's out there to parents who can certainly adopt it, but I would think more of a procedure than a policy. So that way you've got more flexibility with it and leaves it more in the hands of your administration to implement it.
Well, the other problem that I see is if we had you know, a major, you know, the entire second grade of the school, you know, wakes up with a fever, you know, if we've got to have a board meeting to close schools, you know, you've got to be able to have time to have it, you know, advertised. We've got to meet all the sunshine law, right, you know, all that criteria and advertising criteria. So, you know, I'm looking for a way to, I guess, for you, Mr. Smith, to have the discretion in a situation like that. And I feel like you do. I don't know that we need to do anything extra, really, than we already do. But I guess I'm kind of talking in circles a little bit, but I just want to make sure that you have the guidance as director of schools to do what you need to do and respond appropriately in situations, you know, that it's constantly changing.
Now, I just got a text, Governor Lee said he's gonna leave the local districts to decide whether or not teachers are essential. So like everything else, it's on you. That's the text I just got.
Great leadership, our governor.
But guys, we better be good to our people. We've got great people, as we stated in here, and part of the reason we went out of our way to be good to those people. We need to treat our employees, because I don't think it's fair for them to go in and go to work and contract this disease or virus and us not do everything we can to support them. So we need to keep that in mind and be as flexible as we can with them.
But at the same time, this is a moving target. I mean, at my work, we're moving all the time. I mean, we have people goes out on COVID watch. Some of them's out 3 days, some of them's out 5 days, depends. Same thing here, you know, you said if you got into a school, let's say you got into the second grade school here somewhere. But does that mean you shut down the whole school, or you just shut down the second grade department?
Well, it would depend on
You've got to go back generations.
case by case.
Yeah, you go, your first generation is the person that has it. If you come in contact with that, that's the second generation. If you come into contact with somebody, that's the third generation. So you gotta break this thing down in generations to see how far this thing goes back, to see where your level's at. And depending on what generation it is how severe you have to quarantine them.
That's what we got a file already that,
Yeah. So necessarily, it could be you have to shut down the whole school, or it's just you shut down the second and third grade.
We've had previous discussions about that where Barry given an example of a kid that was riding the bus could, in effect, impact,
The whole school.
you know, 3 different schools.
Yeah.
You know.
and we couldn't have done that a year or two ago, but now with technology,
Yeah.
you know, we have the capability of doing that.
Yeah.
But it'll be moving all the time. And trust me, y'all, it will eventually somewhere get into a school or a classroom, probably somewhere. And it's just gonna have to be a case by case.
And it puts a lot more on us, but we felt like, you know, we take every case where the best student or staff member, they call us, we work with the principal, work through it. Most of the time I get Jamie on the phone, we discuss the depth and the levels, and then we decide at that point who we quarantine, who we contact. So we're trying to go overboard with the contacts. We don't want somebody to come back and say that somebody had a case active, and, you know, we're probably going way over what the legalities say, but I wouldn't want somebody to come back and not know that was in that room or that, so.
And I know I don't have mine on right now, but if I was at work, I'd have this on right now. But I know we didn't mandatory mask, but a mask is probably the first offense of this that you can have. And I do know if you're social distancing, you know, you probably don't need the mask. But question I have, and I'm pretty sure they do, I don't know ain't there. I know kids coming on the bus probably don't have a mask on. Do they?
Well, you'd be shocked. I mean, some of the counties around us have mandated, some are not, but we have made them ready available. And I know of 2 or 3 schools that their entire staff are wearing them, that they chose to do that on their own. There's many of our students that's wearing them. One good thing, glad you brought that up, one good thing that's come out of this blended schedule, they're doing a good job of retraining the brain of the social distancing. You know, the students are doing a really good job, and the faculty overall doing that. I don't know when we get them all back, I hope we can keep doing that. You know what I'm saying? It bothers me when we start playing football, you know, and so we met with the 2 staffs on that, and, you know, we're not gonna limit it, because we don't think, but we are gonna put dots on the floor and dots concession stand around the fence, and, you know, they're adults, and at that point, if they don't adhere to that, then we're gonna make announcements all through the game. We're gonna have masks available at the games even, so gloves.
But it looks like to me though, for our school district, I know we didn't set a mandatory mask, but it looks like to me if a kid enters a school bus and it's kind of confined unless they can have a 6-foot space between them, they ought to have a mask on, and the bus driver ought to have a mask on. When the kids are in the hall, there ought to be a mask on. Now, when a kid goes to sit down at his desk and you have your 3 foot or your 6 feet, the teacher's up yonder, then you can possibly take your mask off. But it looks like to me if the child needs to go talk to the teacher has to come to the child, they ought to put the mask back on.
Now, we are mandating, Tom, very along the lines of what you're saying, mandating that anybody that's in the halls, bus duty, hall duty, getting them in and out of cars, they ought to have the mask on. So the high traffic areas, yeah.
High traffic, they ought to have a
Yeah.
mask. Would probably help try to slow this down. And another thing, while I'm speaking, I've heard plenty of good reviews on the blended schedule. And I don't know if we're gonna make it that long, but if we did make it over into September, is there any way we could consider continue a blended schedule maybe for another month, not bringing all them kids back in?
Well, it's funny you said it. Gina and I had the conversation in here, right, you know, I feel like there's populations, like for sure, pre-K through 2. Gina says 4, but I say at least pre-K 2, and nothing against 4 if we got, but there's a realistic, you know, statistics and stuff have shown that obviously your your seventh, eighth graders, high school are much more adept at the computer skills and they're better learners than they're, just because of skill. But I think there's a situation where we might look at, you know, this half goes blended or virtual, this half, or remote, and this half goes back to school. You know, because you could spread them out on the bus, and there's even situations where you might could use some other schools, especially like Thornsville, that's so user-friendly with campuses. Not saying we'd do that, but if this thing was really an outbreak, our special ed students need to be, you know, there's so many services go with that, OT, PT, speech. You know, we need to try to get them back as much as we can in front of somebody live, yes, I feel like there's some things we can. One thing I think it's shown us, you know, people really, it was confusing because what we did was very complex as a whole. Because we let Smith County High School do something much different than, say, New Middleton did, just because of the demographics and the age. So I think we could look at that again, and we could rebuild that as we need to, looking at getting into, hopefully this thing's gonna keep dying down, we can be back in school. But if not, yes, I think we can build this thing. Like I said, it's very complex overall, but if you looked at your individual school, it's pretty simple now that they figured it out. So I think we can do something like that if we start planning, if we can kind of see what these numbers are gonna do.
Any other discussion, questions? If not, we do need executive session.
Make a motion, we'll go into executive session.
Mr. Manning, do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Moore? All in favor say aye. Aye. Our two new board members